Good to be here. Always good to be here. Welcome to a brand new episode of Matt's Art Chat. I'm Matt Micucci, and this is my weekly series of podcast conversations about the arts with creators, curators, and art lovers from all over the world. My guest today is Daniel FIORDA, who was born in Argentina, but now lives in Miami, where he has lived for a number of years. He's primarily a sculptor and a music artist. Sculpting is somehow always involved in whatever artistic endeavor he embarks on. And it's really fascinating. Some of the themes that he explores include consumerism as well as nostalgia. He considers himself a nostalgic person. In this interview, we talk about that as well as his educational journey, which wasn't what you would define as academic. And, well, he'll tell you all about that, as well as one of his recent and fascinating projects that really was the one that caught my eye and made me want to talk with him, Archaeology of the 20th Century. And he'll talk about that, and you'll see why I find it incredibly fascinating. That's all. I'm going to keep it short because we did go over the time a little bit, and I hope you enjoy it. And I apologize for the precarious lighting situation I got going on, but I'm sure that if you have been watching previous video versions of this podcast series, you'll know that I'm not that well equipped for having a video series on YouTube at the moment. Blame COVID, or just blame whatever. But this is a podcast series, so it doesn't really matter in the end, does it? Because it's a conversation that counts. And hopefully you'll find this interesting and inspiring, because I certainly did. So thank you very much for watching, and so long. Hi, Daniel. Lovely to speak with you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to meet you over the internet and hear your voice.
Over the power of the internet. First of all, I wanted to ask you how you're doing. These are crazy times, and I was just wondering whether you're able to stay creative through it all.
Absolutely. Of course that we have good days, and sometimes we have not the best days, especially, with all the pollution of news. I should say pollution of news that come to our hands and our environment all the time. So you need to be very selective and control the time that we expend in front of news or hear news about it. Otherwise, you can get a little bit scary or depressed. But I am a visual artist and sound artist. So I like to take this extra time that this pandemic create for all of us, so we can start, I can continue creating all the time. So it's been fantastic. Fortunately, I'm safe, and my family and friends are all safe, and we need to take care of ourselves until all this enter to another phase, which is, hopefully, I don't know when, but very soon.
Where in the world are you right now?
I live for more than 30 years, since 1990. I live in Miami, Florida.
But you're originally from Argentina.
Yes. I born in Buenos Aires, in the outside of the capital of Buenos Aires, in la provincia de Buenos Aires.
And we were talking a little bit before we started recording this conversation, and I noticed that your second name was of Italian descent. So me being Italian born, I like to notice things like that.
Yes, absolutely. Both my parents, mother's side and father's side, originally. My mother's side, my grandparents are from, I knew them because they were alive when I born. So they were from Italy. And actually, when they died, they were speaking Italian. Even they were living in Argentina for a long time, they were always speaking in Italian. But from my father's side, my grandparents are Argentinians. So my grandfathers from my father's side are from Italy.
Right. And why did you decide to make the move to Miami?
It was, causes and consequences. The actions that you take you to another decisions, and that decision make you, work and do things that take you to another situation. So I never planned to leave Argentina. I love my country. But at the same time, I was present and conscious about the reality, the social economic reality of my country, make a lot of young people looking to explore the world, explore other opportunities, explore other social, cultural things and countries and economics too, and see if we can, it was more like curiosity about how can I maybe project and grow as an artist in another country that it looks like, between quotes, more stable and more fertile to artists. So I thought about move to Canada, but my travels began living in Argentina, going to Mexico, explore a little bit of Mexico. They have incredible, amazing cultural background, beautiful country. And then I entered to United States, and I was going through Go city by city, month by month, all the way up until reaching Canada and reach out some friends, Argentinian friends that were artists that living in Quebec. But when I reached Florida, situation changed. I was working, I got a job throughout my travels in United States. That was good because I was able to make some money, and my job situation changed. So I was in Miami, and Miami in the 90s, it was so it was the end of the emptiness of Miami, because Miami, after the drug war in the 80s, it was a lot of trafficking of drugs and a lot of problems. So Miami was kind of empty. It was not so much, nothing exciting in Miami. Miami didn't have not even a museum. Only the historical museum and something like a foundation of art. It didn't have anything culturally. So it was very cheap to stay in Miami and live. So I decided to stay in Miami. It was so cheap to rent an apartment. And so I decided to stay. I discovered an art community. I joined this art community very, very fast. And I got my studio. And little by little, I began to buy my tools and everything that I needed to continue my career as an artist. Yeah.
Interesting. And what strikes me about what you said is that it sounds like it must have been really exciting for an artist such as yourself to move to a place that, as you mentioned, was sort of flourishing, artistically speaking or culturally speaking.
Sometimes I think that I came here to drop roots in this city when nothing culturally was going on around. And as I grow as an artist and as a person too, everything began to grow too around. So that goes in parallel to philosophy. Sometimes even some tenets in philosophy or Buddhist talk that whatever you are the land of the enlightenment, because whatever you are, you take decisions to make yourself better and make your surroundings better. And that was the experience that I lived through. Nothing was here. And as I grow as a person, also the society around me grows as a society, as a city. So I'm very happy about it.
I would love to know more about the origins of your interest in the arts. Do you remember when it was that you first became interested in arts?
I think it was the influence of my father, which always was my father was always an open-minded man. Just to tell you a short history, when I finished elementary school, I was very creative. I like to draw, I like to paint, but that was in the early times, So then when I was trying to get into the high school, I got a little bit rebellious, and I told my father that I don't want to go to high school. My father got a little bit scared. I said, what's your plan? But my father, rather than being strict and obligate me to go to school, in high school, he asked me, what do you like to do? And I say, I want to do art. And in my house was a piano. So I was playing piano already by ear. And then my father gave me an option. He says, what about if you study music? What about you study drawing and painting with a teacher that I know? And then the rest of your free time, you learn things in my workshop. Because my father was an excellent welder. he used to do welding for different body shops and all the neighborhood around. Used to bring objects, cooking pans and things like that they break with the time. And my father used to weld them and fix them. So my high school years, rather than going to the classical traditional school, I went to private music school. I went to private teaching classes of drawing and paintings. And on the rest of the week, I was helping my father in his workshop, in which I learned welding, using power tools, understanding basic safety concept about working around tools and metal objects. So I have a very, very alternative education.
Your father was a remarkable man in the sense that he was completely supportive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
And so that's interesting because I came across a statement. I don't know whether it was on your website or someone who wrote about your works. I can't really remember right now, but that let's say that for your craftsmanship, you have this education and also you have your father helping you with that. But your education as an artist is something different. And what I read, I believe, was you said that you try to develop the artist within you. And I wondered what that meant and what that process sort of entails.
Yeah, that's right. You phrase something that I say, I don't know from which of the articles, but some way, somehow, I feel like I have some freedom. I didn't even went to the classical academic art school, which also I know that is good, because it trains you and I teach you the traditional academic art school will show you what is the artwork around through history. But sometimes you get a lot of preconceived concepts about art. But in my case, I went to study, but it was more like private one-on-one teacher and student situation for more than 3 years in music and in art and visual arts. Of course, my drawing and painting teacher, she was showing me through different books and pictures, great masters of the Renaissance to contemporary. And for sure, it influenced me. But as I was doing art since I was maybe 13, 14 years old, I was making my own sculptures. I think through the process of making them through many years allowed me to discover my artistic self from within myself. I think that I hope what I say is it add to the concept that you mentioned.
You didn't want to be too influenced by outside sources.
Yeah, but it was not a conscious attitude about it.
Okay.
Now I can see it. Maybe if I haven't go to the academic school, traditional academic art school, for sure I will have some kind of influence. But I can tell you right now that when I see the artwork of my peers, of young artists around, the city, or my experience of seeing people that are artists with the 5 or 6 years of a traditional academic school, I can see the difference between kind of a self-taught artist and academic traditional artist. It's always a line that separates the aesthetics of both type of experiences.
I understand what you're saying, but were there any artists that you were sort of influenced by, especially in your formative years, where you received, as you called it, an alternative education?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, so always when I was studying with my private teacher, her name was Marta De Filippo. Listen to the last name, De Filippo.
Yeah, another Italian.
Also, yeah. She was a teacher on the, traditional academic school, but also she was also teaching privately. So I was going to her home. She had a nice, beautiful, big studio. She was teaching maybe 2 or 3 students at the same time. One of the artists that she showed us, I remember one day, was Vincent van Gogh. When I saw especially the stroke of the brush of Vincent van Gogh and his powerful color and contrast, that was something that really struck me. In reference to painting, I wanted to have the same kind of feelings and energetic experience, because I felt like Vincent van Gogh was putting his entire life on the painting. And that motivated me throughout my, my early years. I say, I'm going to put my life on what I do.
He's such a famous sort of artist, and people know about his works, but also about his life story. Do you feel like you were also charmed by, the tragic but also adventurous history of Van Gogh in a way?
I guess, yes. But also I was exposed to, sculptures, American sculptures like David Smith, that worked with metal. And David Smith was a railroad worker. And then he was exposed to heavy metals, and he had a large kind of industrial shop with welding machines and powerful tools. And it related a little bit with my father's studio too, my father's workshop. He was a welder. So also he influenced me to begin to make sculptures.
Yeah, exactly. And I did want to ask you as well, was it always sculpture that you were primarily interested in?
I think, yes, I have some kind of a natural ability to make things, to construct, to build things. When I was a kid, I was playing with my friends. We used to get our bicycles and going around and have fun. If any of the bicycles will get broke in the process, we will bring it to my father's studio. At the beginning, my father was helping us and fixing the bicycles. But then when I learned to use all the welding machines and everything at the early age, I think I was 16 years old when I was already allowed by my father to do welding with the welding torch. So I was taking care of my bicycle and bicycle of my friends. And we began to do a little bit of modifications. We used to do tricycles, getting scrap metal or getting old stuff and put it together and weld it together and create some kind of a mobile device. And we used to take it outside and show it to all the neighbors and have fun. So I was building, since I was young.
Do you find that the work that you do with sculpture influences the work that you do with music as well?
Yeah, because music and visual art have certain elements that are common to both of it. We talk about rhythm, we talk about harmony, movement, strength. I think those are elements that you can put it the same way if you make music or you make visual art. Yes.
Interesting. And I wanted to talk about one of the projects that I feel really caught my eye when I was looking at your work, and that's Archaeology of the 20th Century. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, it was an accumulative experience. At the beginning, when I began to do sculptures, right away I began to build things. At one point that I want to make clear, one of the tools that I learned from my father's workshop was the welding machine. The welding machine allowed you to put two pieces of metal together and make it one. So the two objects that were separated, when you weld it together, they become one object. So that's kind of maybe the essential of sculpting, of making sculptures based on the concept of collage. What I was right into the creation of collages by putting a lot of metal together that my father was allowing me to use, his scrap metal or whatever was left over from my father's workshop. I used to take it and create things. So as you can see, or you might imagine, I was always looking at the objects that they came to my hands to create my artwork. And it was a sentiment, or it was an emotional thing when I always look at the objects and I was asking myself in silence, only in my mind, wow, look at these objects, where it comes from. I'm always wondering the relationship. I always question in everything that I see, the relationship between the objects and who have it before. What was the function of that object? And maybe for how many people went through this object before it came to my hands. So I was, in some way, somehow, I was asking questions more like an archaeologist or an anthropologist without conscience of being one, a professional like that. So eventually, those questions that I was always asking myself in silence, it manifests in a sculpture. It manifests in my aesthetics. So little by little, throughout the years of making art, that questioning in silence within myself actually began to flourish more on the surface. And rather than mixing all those objects together to create a collage or some fantasy, aesthetics or whatever, I began to appreciate more the object itself. And little by little, I began to put the objects on my artwork as a point of entrance so people can appreciate and also influence the viewer to ask the same questions. So Archaeology of the 20th Century was a name put by the director of a gallery that I am represented. That title, that it was the title of a show, the title of my catalog, and so on. I think it marked the shift of my artwork, the aesthetic of my artwork since the last maybe 10 years until today. At the beginning, I was doing more like collage, abstract, figurative, or neo-figurative. And then finally, I began to reveal more myself as an archaeologist of the future, showing in the present what the objects might look like in the future.
I see. So we talked about sculpture as construction, but this is also transformation then, right? Absolutely.
Yes.
First of all, just in case anyone listening doesn't know exactly what we're talking about, what kind of objects are you using though to make these artworks?
That's very interesting too. So remember, the nature of my art as a visual artist, as a sculpture, was by collecting objects, discard found objects. That was from the beginning of my career. I always got found objects to be able to make art. And also was a way to be able to develop my career without spending so much money and materials, because I was looking for, some way, somehow, I was looking for trash, to make my art. So for something that people don't want it anymore. So people that know me and know where is my studio, people will bring me stuff all the time. So I remember, people coming to my studio saying, Daniel, I have a lot of these materials. Do you want it? And always says, yes, bring it to me. Thank you very much. And little by little, I began to realize, whoa, I have 1, 2, 3. How many? I have typewriters. The typewriters is an object that with the technology revolution and the computer age, we used to write letters with typewriters. And then the typewriters became the mechanical ones, became the electronic ones. And then the electronic ones became the computers. So as soon as the computer became available to everyone, the mechanical typewriters and the electronic typewriters, they went directly through the trash. It was not a recycling. It was not a process of a slow transformation to it. No, everything came, especially in the capitalist system where I am living right now. Very strong capitalist system. So everything that doesn't work anymore, that you don't want to use it anymore, go to the trash. And for me, it's my treasure. So in some way, somehow, I begin to receive so many objects and look for objects. And also have a kind of a good energy on finding good things. I like to go and explore in places like thrift stores or, places where I know that people discard a lot of objects, and I am like a scavenger. Mm-hmm. Like I'm looking around with my pickup truck, and if I see something interesting, I pick it up and I try to save it for as much time I can until some idea come or the object talk to me. I have that experience too. Sometimes I have an object in my shelf, in my studio for years, maybe 2, 3, 4 years, and I never do anything with it. And then finally I look at them and I think they talk to me. This is between quotes. And I finally say, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And I get so compulsive and I begin to make art with that object. Archaeology of the 20th century series began by one of the many other objects that became obsolete right away. As soon as the digital cameras, the digital world, changed, no one else, not even the most, maybe a few hundreds in the world, continue using film in the cameras, 35 millimeters cameras. But because today it's more practical to use digital cameras. You can download all the images in the computer, you fix them, and then you use it and you do whatever you want. But for that reason, imagine the amount of 35 millimeters cameras, very expensive cameras at one time, Nikon, Reflex, so many other, Minolta, things like that. So I began to collect also 35 millimeters cameras, began to collect cellular phones. I realized also the way that we listen to music now is all streaming by computer or by listening to a CD player. So the cassette tapes became an object of archaeology too. Nobody else want to have, what am I going to do with those 50 tapes, cassette tapes? So I get them, I collect them, I buy on eBay, by bulk, So with all these objects that the society is discarding because of the revolution of technology, I take them and I try to save it and present it aesthetically in a way that people can see the objects like society will watch them in the near future in the Archaeology Museum.
So I understand the sort of observation on consumerism that you mentioned, but would you also consider yourself a nostalgic person? Absolutely.
Very nostalgic. Very emotional and very nostalgic.
Really? Yeah.
Absolutely. When you are doing that, like the things that I'm explaining, is because I always, I appreciate the amount of time and thought process and industrial design and time and the people that were involved on creating those things. And I really appreciate that. I have nostalgia about the object itself, and also I have appreciation for all the people that were that were involved at the time to create those objects.
Yeah, it's almost like a celebration of the past too.
Yes.
That's fascinating. And I also love cassette tapes, by the way. I have a batch of them at home that I just, I've never used, but I have them. And I know that I have them in case I feel like making a mixtape at some point.
Oh, yes.
What about your work in music? Do you do similar things with sounds?
Yes. My approach to music, I went 3 years to the conservatory, to the music conservatory.
What instruments do you play?
Piano.
Okay.
Yes. In some ways and how a piano is such a mechanical instrument, it's like a it is a percussive.
Percussive, yeah.
Percussive instrument. And I have a piano throughout my life, not now because I live in a small apartment. I have a keyboard, a MIDI keyboard. But when I used to have a acoustic piano, I love to look at it inside and see all the relationships between every object that is part of the hammers and the strings, everything. It's a work of art. It's really a piano. When you look at you can be like a grand piano or vertical piano, and you look at the mechanics inside. You have to bow to it and says, wow, such a incredible engineering to be able to make music. It's amazing. So when I study music, of course, I study through the classical masters, and I do the exercise, the scales, everything. And I went through different programs throughout 3 or 4 years of my life. And then I began to take classes privately with specific goal to learn more about jazz or other things. But I was not very good student. When you study music, I don't know, my experience, I realized that music is I should say, you have to be a little bit of a monk.
Not literally a Thelonious Monk, right?
No, no. But no, it's a nice play of words. But you really have to commit to the study.
Sure.
Music is something, and especially if you play piano, is something that you continue to grow and learn, and throughout the whole life. And of course, I love great jazz musicians like Herbie Hancock, Miles Davis, Pat Metheny, and jazz, and today contemporary great composers and players like Robert Glasper and so many other great musicians. So I stopped studying, but I continue playing. And I always like to contribute and collaborate with other musicians. So I remember like maybe 12, 15 years ago in Miami, music was something like secondary. Like the first things in my life on the surface was visual art. And I keep my music for myself. But like 15 years ago, a friend of mine, new friends that I make in Miami, also from Argentina, he asked me, Daniel, why we don't do something together? And I say, no, yeah, but I don't know how to read music anymore. I forgot about it. I don't write music. No, he says, let's do something experimental. When he says something experimental, I went like, wow, if you're talking to me like that, yes. So in my studio, in my art studio, in which I have so many objects and metal pieces and things like that. So I say, okay, I'm gonna make music with the objects that I have around. So this partnership with my friend became what is today something called UOM, which is the anachronism of Unheard of Music. And we put that name because also it have a second meaning, but also because we got together to make music also as a collage of sounds. And it was very interesting. And then little by little, more people got involved in the project. We keep it with an open mind. And also we collaborate with other people that do vocals, people that do other instruments. And then we met another friend that played cello. I say, oh, this must be interesting. I hit different type of oxygen tanks that make a wonderful bell, like a church bell sounds. Eduardo, the other friends play guitar, synthesized guitars, and this other guy is gonna play cello. So imagine, it was it's still a fantastic mix up, Yeah.
What's the name of this ensemble again?
Oh, you can find us in SoundCloud. We call ourselves the UOM. UOM, UOM, like University of Miami, but actually it means Unheard of Music.
Interesting. Hey, so how important is it for you to be working within different art forms? Do you feel like it's important to you to kind of also be active, for example, in sculpture as well as music?
Yeah, they complement each other very, very well. For example, things that I learned, let's put it in this way. In my experience, and you can for sure have the same feedback from many artists. Making art, the actual action, physical action of making art is only the 50% of your professional career. The other 50% is doing interviews like right now, going and apply for opportunities, participate in competitions, going to different websites to see if there is an opportunity for you to participate on an open call for an artist. So there's a lot of kind of administrative things that you have to get involved to it, especially right now during the pandemic. So a lot of opportunities going on around in the internet, and you have to kind of scramble between all of them and find the best for you, that fit the best for you. So all those administrative things that I do for my art career, my visual art career, I pass it to the music career too. So I know music is not about getting together and playing music and jamming, which is very good. It's very kind of, therapeutic. By the way, let me tell you that when I reach levels of anguish or stress, anxiety maybe, and any time, this can be 10 years ago until even today, especially. I know that it's time for me to do a little bit of jamming. I play music, I create music, and then my mind, my set of mind goes to another level, and all the anguish just disappear. So I just pass it to you in case of you feel a little bit nervous sometimes or anxious. Just play music.
I understand. I play a little guitar, and I don't have one with me because I'm stuck in Prague. But I travel with a mini guitar, but not this time. I didn't think I was going to be here for too long. Anyways, I really miss it, so I understand completely what you're saying. Daniel, we've gone over the time I promised, the half-hour mark by quite a bit. But I wanted to ask you, I mean, what are you working on right now? Are there any projects that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, why not? I didn't mention that throughout the years I changed the materials in which I work as a visual artist. So now I'm working in concrete. I think something that you can see, you were able to see through the archaeology of the 20th century or the pictures that I send you. I'm working with this new material. I mean, it's not a new material. New material for me, when 3-4 years ago, I began to use more and more and more. And today I'm making 100% of all my work is made with concrete. So continue with the series of archaeology, like embedding or resurfing, objects through concrete. I'm working on that now. I have one of my series on archaeology is to using cellular phones. And as you can see, the cellular phone became also kind of a very, very important tool for individuals to record. Now today, everybody can record a video. You understand that maybe 20 years ago, we as a society were not able to record or take pictures. Now everybody record videos and take pictures. This is something amazing. This is kind of a revolution. And it's changing also society itself. So I'm buying hundreds of cellular phones because also the cellular industry changed so rapidly. Now everybody uses smartphones. So all the flip phones, the Sidekick, all the old phones, and even the early smartphones, the iPhone 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Imagine now they are in the iPhone number 11 or 12 or something like that. All that is trash. So I'm getting all those objects and I'm making an installation. I hope I can make an installation of 1,000 phones that are going to be embedded in concrete squares. And I hope I can exhibit them one day in a museum.
Oh, yeah. I can see that also becoming something of a trend in interior design.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to have to have some kind of a client or collector that would like to have one of my installations on their collection.
And finally, just to end it all, what's the best way that anyone who is interested in your work, what's the best way that they can keep up with all of the things that you're doing?
Oh, by paying by cash. No, just kidding.
Where can they make the payment?
We need it so badly. No, listen, my website, I hope you can put it on your postings, is my name, Daniel FIORDA Projects. Or actually, the social media allow now to connect with the people right away. For example, if you put @ or at Daniel FIORDA Project, you will land in my website, my Instagram account, in so many other things, in my public records, who knows? So yeah, let me tell you. So Daniel FIORDA, you just type Daniel FIORDA in Google and you will find my website, my Instagram account. But if you understand, it's at Daniel FIORDA Project, and then you land in all my social media.
All right. Okay, Daniel, it was a pleasure to chat with you. Really was. Thank you very much for doing this.
The same with you, and say hello to all your friends in Czechoslovakia. I hope I can visit one day very soon, and I hope you can return to your country very soon too.
All right.